Hi, Brian.
Hello, hello. I am going to be
Yeah.
mostly muted today. I've got a fair amount of impact drilling going on right next to me. They're installing some solar generation equipment. So hopefully they'll be done in like 15, 30 minutes, but I'll try to stay muted until then. Um,
Okay.
do we want to wait a couple of minutes for a couple more people to stream in, or do we want to go ahead and get started?
I think we can get started. Yeah. I
Cool.
think, yeah, everybody already joined.
Good. Please take it away.
Okay. Okay. Welcome everyone to join this SCONE interim meeting. And this is our second interim meeting since Madrid. And thanks everyone managed to come to this meeting. And as usual, this meeting will be automatically recorded using the Meet Echo. Note will apply. I will not go into detail to discuss this, and please bear in mind we all agree to follow the IETF process and policies, including IPR policies. And we also agree the contribution, including the audio, video, and the presentation, will be public available after this meeting. Working group status, and since the Madrid meeting, we already have the first interim meeting mostly focused on finalizing SCONE-based protocol, made good progress. Thanks Martin and Marcus and many others to make it happen, and also continue to drive for completion in the GitHub report. So in this interim meeting, we want to schedule 1 hour dedicated time slot to explore the proposal related to the applicability, the second charter item, and especially Sanjay's proposal, which has been cooked for a while. In addition, we also received another proposal from Tianji and from China Mobile, which has already been presented in Madrid meeting. Hopefully, the second proposal will be also the good input to our discussion as well. And the document status, as we discussed in the previous interim meeting, we set a priority for the SCORM-based protocol, and the target is strive for completion, make it ready for working group last call, and also very different directive review and publication. And in the meanwhile, we also want to spend time to make some progress on second charter item applicability and manageability, and target to the working adoption to meet the milestone time frame in this charter. So meeting administrative, and we all using the data tracker account to join this Meet Echo meeting. So your attendance will be automatically recorded and in the e-blue sheet. We're also looking for a volunteer to take a minute, and the note-taking URL has already shared in the chat window. And please help to watch the chat window discussion, forward the key discussion point to the meeting room if necessary. Please identify yourself before you speak. If you don't present anything, or please mute yourself. So here's the agenda for today's discussion, and we have 1.5 hour, and we will spend the first 1 hour dedicated session to discuss the applicability. This will be led by Sanjay, and I hope most of this discussion, this 1 hour, will focus on the open issue related to the Sanjay's latest update documents. And if time is still allowed, we will review the remaining open issue for the SCONE-based protocols. And also we will discuss the possible plan for interoperability test for the next IETF meeting. And also we will discuss whether we need to schedule another interim meeting in October. And agenda bash. Seems none. Let's move to the first topic, Sanjay. Do I need to pass the control to you?
Either way, if you want to share, that's fine.
Yeah, I send the request to you.
Okay. I did a request for screen share. See if you got it.
Yeah, let me.
I have clicked grant screen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's doing
it keeps saying all the slots for the request.
Oh,
requested
yeah,
media are already
maybe-
taken.
Hold on just a second. You have slides control, so hold on. I will, yes, and then I will close the deck, and then I can grant screen. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
we can see
well.
now.
Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So so the as Ken, as you said, that I'm going to be walking through the applicability and manageability draft that we have submitted. And as you said, it's been cooking for a while. Although this shows here as version 01, but I'll get through the history here. So the authors with me are Anup, who's also here, Kuram from Verizon, he's not here on the call today, and then Zahid as well. So let me move to the next slide. So this slide is just to kind of give you a little bit of idea of how this has been cooking or baking for a while. So we started out as a use case and requirements document and submitted the initial version back at the IETF 122 in April, followed by a presentation at the interim number 3 to introduce the idea of use case and requirements. So essentially, the document was focused on the use case, which was close to the applicability part, and then we had a set of requirements as well. So the initial feedback was that perhaps the requirements part can move out from the document, and they can go into open up as issues in GitHub for against the SCONE protocol. So there were 3 or 4 issues that seemed like very relevant to the protocol discussion at the time. So I created issues in the SCONE working group, and some of those have been now incorporated into the SCONE protocol. I don't have the precise list, but you can look through that. And
so
I also.
So which slides do you discuss? So I think we're still in the first slides.
Oh, it didn't move. The slide didn't move. Hold on a second. I may have to. So I may have to go to the.
Do you want to run this from the uploaded slides then?
Yeah, let me go to the uploaded slides.
Okay, I have given you slide control, so you can go and grab the one out of the uploaded slides.
All right, that's better. Go to the next page.
Yeah, it works now.
All right, thank you. So, sorry about that. Can you see it? Is it big enough, or do I need to?
Yeah, this is much better. So
okay,
good.
All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. So yeah, so I was just talking about that. The first bullet, we submitted initial version at IETF 122. Got some good feedback from Kevin from Vodafone and also other folks, including Marcus from Ericsson. And Marcus really had a point that maybe we ought to move the requirements as something into the SCONE protocol document, SCONE working group, which I did at that time. And also, so that was between version 0.0 of requirements, use case and requirements, and then version 0.1, where we also added Khurram and Zaid as the document contributors as well in version 0.1. And Ken, you did do a good review of that, and one of the feedback was that we really need to start focusing on use case and applicable, instead of use case and requirements, need to focus on applicability and the manageability portion of it. So we changed the direction and obviously recalibrated the draft into that mold, and we submitted that in last July at the IETF 123 in Madrid. And in the meantime, we've been working through in my personal GitHub account where we have issues, and the document is sitting out there. So I started out as a use case, then made a branch with the applicability and manageability, and you can see at the bottom of this slide as to where they are located. Please stop me if you have any questions. I'm just going to otherwise try to walk through the slides. So this is, just over the weekend, we submitted draft 0.1 of applicability and manageability. I'm just going to call it A&M to make it easier over the weekend. And thankfully got some good comments from Tina and also Jiang. So thank you for that. So just to kind of give you as to where we are in the document, how that is being shaping as of now. So we did the abstract and introduction, obviously reshaped it, rewrote it to clearly define document scope and focusing just on the A&M part within the operator networks. Added new sections 3 and 4. We moved down the previous section all the way at the bottom, which really talked about the 3GPP core architecture. So we moved that down, and we didn't really touch that section. Section 5, we did not really touch it except move it down all the way at the bottom. And then promoted these sections, the new section 3, which is an applicability in mobile networks, and section 4 talks about the operational considerations. So in section 3, we are focusing on where and how the SCONE signal can be effectively deployed in the 3GPP mobile networks. So that's sort of the focus of the applicability. And then on the manageability is really focusing on the operational considerations. And we have identified a number of topics there, including management, conformance, and addressing some real-world challenges. So overall, the content has been restructured. And as I said, we moved the 3GPP 5G core section all the way at the bottom. And we didn't really do any edits there. So probably that needs to be edited. And I know there's a comment out there that, it's really 5G focused, and then we ought to talk about 4G as well. So I know there's a comment out there on that. Any questions on this so far? Anybody? I'll just keep moving. So just to really recap quickly on the abstract and the introduction, really trying to limit as to what we write there. So abstract is really just focused on outlining the purpose as it should be, identifying SCONE signal that can be used in mobile networks, and then we outline the operational considerations. And the whole idea obviously is draft is focusing on the throughput advice and how that can be implemented in the mobile networks. Okay, did I move too far? Okay, that's slide 5. Okay. So this section really just talks about implementing SCONE in mobile networks, why that applies. So really the idea is mobile and access networks experience variable conditions, could be based on one or more factors or all factors at the same time, congestion, interference, resource allocation, or it could be even including the user data plan allowance, etc. So, and in these conditions, in these varying and changing conditions, even the applications such as adaptive bit rates, applications may still degrade under these conditions. So the purpose is really to focus on how that applies, how you can manage, given those conditions, how you could manage those within the 5G or the 4G network to be able to manage resources using SCONE signaling. All right, move on to the next page. And this section talks about scope of deployment. Again, it's focused on 3GPP mobile network, and in particular talks about the user plane function or the P gateway in 4G networks that can act as SCONE advisors as those devices interact with the various 5G policy functions. Examples are listed out there: PCF, SMF, and PCRF, to name a few. All right, moving on to next slide. So SCONE manageability, operational considerations. So these section really are focusing on this is, I guess, is the meat of the document, where we're looking at various functions that ought to be considered. Now, this list is obviously, it's just a start, I should say, of the document. So this is not exhaustive by any means. And once the working group document is adopted, certainly I'm sure there would be a lot of input that can be had there. But as a starting point, this is the section where we've added much of the meat. Now, so the sections 4.1 to 4.3 really just outline some of the underlying 3GPP specification-based, i.e. how the PDU session is established, signaling, the QoS and bearer considerations, mobility management, as those are all relevant to the SCONE signaling. So basically, sections 4.1 to 4.3 just talks about that. And particularly the areas that we have added in the document, starting out with, and it's no particular order of how we have listed these. So I'm just going to go by the order in which we have listed in the document. So one of the first consideration, and I know we've had a lot of conversation on this particular topic in the SCONE protocol document. Particularly, Brian, I think you have a question.
Yeah, no, I'm actually I'm pointing out you've got John in the queue. I think he wants to ask a question a little bit up. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, is now a good time? I asked about this question. Is now a good time, Sanjay?
Oh, yes, yes.
So about frequency update. Thanks, Brian. You mentioned at the beginning about there's kind of like multiple use cases that we talk about in applicability and manageability here. Like there's kind of congestion control and there's sort of like user level sort of like data plan information throttling. And those can like have big differences in terms of the frequency of updates or how often you want to check. In terms of congestion control has to be sort of more real time, whereas user data plan can be sort of more infrequent and just like specified once. So do you specify like differences and like how that might make a difference in terms of the frequency of updates, or like how do you see like that balance and how can you address both of those?
Yeah, so I think the changes, so SCONE is sort of agnostic to some of that. I think what we're trying to do is keep a focus on that UPF has determined in the examples that we have laid out that it needs to update. Now, how UPF gets that information may vary between networks as they deploy it. There may be information more than congestion that they may be able to rely on, or they may simply rely on user data plan, or UPF information may be the throughput advice may be a combination of number of things that they're seeing within their network internal congestion, or they're seeing some interference, or they're seeing something on the RAN congestion that they're taking the feedback on. So it's a hard topic to know, because each mobile operator may have different way of determining the value. What we're trying to sort of come up to a level that some of that has already been done, and now the question is that from where this information needs to be sent. So we're just saying that UPF might be a good place from where we can take this information and feed that back into the SCONE packet and send it out.
Okay, it's something I think we'll need to monitor it on, because I think they do have some like differences in sort of the specifics, but like we do want the protocol to be agnostic, so it's good to balance. Thanks.
Yeah.
So on that point, I will point out, I'm not sure whether it merged in yet or not, but there's some discussion in the protocol document of at least some rules around how you have to treat the throughput advice at the endpoint based on whether it's going up or down and what that update frequency is, right? Like, so it's not completely like the dynamics of the update frequency are not, we don't have every possible point on that spectrum. But yeah, I think that both at the application manageability standpoint as well as in the protocol document, we should try to keep this as widely applicable as possible.
Yeah, I was about to say pretty much the same thing as Brian. Like, what it looks like we're converging on, like, you will not be, there will be like an upper limit on the frequency of like changes based on some of the PRs and issues that we have open now. Because even if you change your throughput advice frequently, we are now discussing like that you need to have some grace periods where you need to have accept some, you need to have some slack for take the time it takes for endpoints to actually react to them and so on. So there will be some limitations there in how frequently you can change things. And also, just one comment: we shouldn't really use the term congestion control when we talk about input for these changes, because it's such an overloaded term. But yeah, I agree that we should keep this as agnostic as possible.
Do you have a better term that we should align on to use?
Yeah, I think we need to find one. Congestion control is just so overloaded, and that's going to get us into so much trouble later on if we use that term from anybody reviewing this stuff. So yeah, let's think of something better, and hopefully we find it. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a action item for Marcos to start painting that bike shed, I think. Cool. Tianji.
Yeah, just want to make sure. Can you hear me? I don't know.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Good. Regarding the frequency of update here, because we're talking about the controlled domain here, or mobile network. Actually, there are two different ways. One is just like the UPF can respond by itself based on information from the SCONE packet itself. The other thing here, actually, it can be an event trigger. That means that in the mobile network, there are so many ways to trigger UPF to do something based on like some threshold, like every some time if the UPF detect the SCONE packet, and with some advisor at this moment, it can trigger the feedback. So the frequency of update, actually, there is the one like just like a random part. The other thing is like event trigger. So we can categorize this one into two different things. So, yeah, many ways to control in the controlled domain. Yeah. And also for the dynamic update there, my suggestion is better not talk about the RAT. We know in the mobile network, the congested part will be, or the critical part will be on the RAN network itself, because the core network itself will be, most of the time will be better, much better. So, but here, if we do talk about the RAT here, if people understand this one, it will lead people to think about the radio things, wireless part. But here, we're talking about the SCONE, and still from the IP point of view. So my suggestion is not just use the RAT, maybe use something like wireless or radio change, those type of things. Otherwise, I don't know. Can people speak up? Can people spell RAT? What is RAT? Radio access technology or something. So it may cause confusion. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so
can I respond to that one? I mean, to Taniji about the RAT changes. I mean, can I do that, Mishra?
yeah, yes.
Yeah. So the thing here is like, I mean, for the dynamic update, so I think the idea there is like, okay, what are the cases where the network would like to trigger the update, right? I mean, the servers are sending SCONE packet with a certain frequency, and what are the cases like when you will be triggering the network might need to trigger like, okay, this frequency I need to send it now. One of the cases, this is why we kind of talked about RAT, is basically, well, there are a couple of more things than RAT, definitely. You have subscriber policy, you have this different kind of cost bearer and all this thing. But the RAT, when it comes to RAT has certainly a drastic change. So like you go from 5G to 4G, you have a drastic change. And obviously the device know like, okay, I'm now on 4G. Server doesn't know that. The client might not notice that. But then you hit a certain threshold on a certain certain RAT. So 4G has a less bandwidth available for any traffic, so for example, and that would be executed right away. So you will see like I got an SCONE packet which says like I can go 1 meg, I can remain within 1 meg, but now I am within that limit, but something just completely throttling my rate. Now what happened? Maybe there's a rate change, and in that case it's like getting a new information when the rate changed, and network knows like this rate is going to change before the UE does it. And so it would be good to send some sort of dynamic update. So that's like one of the use cases that we have been thinking about, but we can discuss more about if that is a valid case or not.
Okay, can I reply? Yeah, the thing here, well, Zach, thank you for the explanation. That makes sense. But the thing is, when I read through the RAT changes, the thing here for the RAT is kind of like a different technologies can cover 2G, GSM, 3G, UMTS on LTE, 4G, and plus 5G new radio part. Because when I read the RAT changes, it brought me to think about is do we going to go through some mobility, like a roaming, not roaming, shopping. Sorry, it's just like a mobility change from one technology to another. Oh, you're talking about the barrier. I think you mentioned about the barrier, the DRB, those type of things in your talk or in your conversation here. So I think you meant it's under the same RAT, but using some dynamic changes on the radio network. And instead of the changing from one technology to the other, like from 5G to the 4G LTE. Is that right? You're not talking about the mobility of the UE here, right?
No. We're not talking about the mobility.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not about mobility. This is about
Okay.
certain RAT change with the same or different PDU sessions, and then basically you hit a new limit, and you need to signal that one. That's the case.
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing else.
That's why I got confused here. RAT changes. It can mean like you change from 5G and then you find, okay, well the UE has moved to the service domain out of 5G and then to other like a 4G domain. In that case, it's called the RAT changes.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like for application, it's just a new kind of threshold, and the idea here is like to tell the application you have got a new threshold, and it could be because you've changed from 5G to 4G or maybe 2G. I don't know. But I think for SCONE working over is more important, like it gets a signal, which is kind of like useful rather than why perhaps it's getting the signal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, the signal you cannot get
policy, it could be something else. So I think I think we don't need to delve into like the why React changes and all this thing here.
No, I
But
don't
we
think
can
we can
make a
yeah.
good job on explaining what
Okay.
is meant.
Yeah, the red change part of the signal has to go through the control plane of the wireless network. I don't think we can
But
get it.
Taniji, that's not the idea here. The
Well,
idea is that
understand.
the React change happens, is control plane change signal happens at the end of the day. Whether the question is whether I'm going to send a signal to the UE or like the client or not via SCONE,
Okay.
and
Okay.
the question is yes. So rest of the things is hidden from the SCONE protocol itself or is SCONE participants.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've drained the queue. Sanjay, thank you very much. Let's keep going.
All right, so let me move to the next slide. And this basically continues on. So section 4 has like 4.1 through 4.12 different points that we have raised. And obviously there are a little bit more detail in the document than I have here in the PowerPoint, but essentially just covering what should be. So we talked about dynamic updates. We're also thinking about what is the frequency of those updates, and how frequently you do, or how less frequently you do. So there needs to be some balance between the responsiveness based on the changing conditions versus adding load on the CPU, load on the system to try to do too much when not needed, or doing too little when needed. So I think there needs to be some more discussions. I don't think we know the answer to that, but I think we do recognize that we need to consider how frequently the updates can be made available, keeping in mind that it needs to be dynamic as well. So some of the challenges are there to look at. And we also talk about conformance monitoring is essentially within the P gateway or UPF. There needs to be a way that it can also validate whether this is truly a SCONE process, or should this be network needs to monitor if it's within the bounds of maximum allowable throughput. So some sort of conformance monitoring needs to be considered. Marcus, I'm pretty sure you have something to say there.
It's a small comment on this. I mean, I agree with what you say. It's a comment on the document on a little bit on the use of normative language in some of these statements. I'm not sure it's the right thing. I mean, I agree with what you say, but for instance, in conformance, or was I lost it. In the conformance mesh monitoring, basically it says that network elements providing SCONE throughput device must implement mechanisms to measure compliance. I'm not sure if we need that language to be that strong in this type of document. I think it should be more like guidance saying that it is an appropriate thing to do, but you might operate a network element that sends the throughput device, but perhaps don't have the capability of doing monitoring or for whatever reason. So I think it's just something to consider whether we need that type of strong uppercase normative language.
Yeah, and I will be the first to confess that there's always a challenge when you are putting something as may, should, and must. And I'm sure we have not consistently managed to convey that idea. So where we have may, maybe needs to be a should, or where we have should be a may or a must. So yeah, no, that's a good feedback.
You might not even need that uppercase language at all, and just write it and more as like general recommendations. I don't know, but I think that's something for us to discuss, whether we need normative language like this.
Zahid?
So Marcus, I mean, let's put aside the normative language. I think how the way it is written there, I also agree with you. Like the network itself might not have this monitoring thing. It might actually report something back to some other places, and so network as a whole might need to have this monitoring, and well, we can say like need to implement or we can say must, is a working group's decision. And if this is a working group work, I think the working group needs to decide like whether they're going to recommend in a recommend way, or if they're going to use recommendation in a normative language way. That's like a second-hand question. But I think I agree. The point you were making is like the network environment itself doesn't need to provide all the monitoring conformance, but the network as a whole need to provide the monitoring conformance, and this monitoring could be done somewhere else other than this element that's putting the red value in the SCONE packet.
And I think I'm sort of like going to stick my neck out a little bit here on the point of so I'm getting some good feedback, and it's great. So the choices are that you go into my personal GitHub and open an issue so that we don't lose track of it, or better yet, that if the document is adopted and we have actually a GitHub on the SCONE working group, then all these can be memorialized in a way that basically becomes permanent and becomes incumbent on the editors to make sure that they pick these comments up. So I know I'm a little bit ahead of that question of arriving at the decision, but I think it'll, at some point, we really need to think about that so that we can make sure that these valuable comments are actually acted upon. But so yes, point well taken on the conformance monitoring, and I'm probably the one that put the word must there, so I own to that. And I'm sure I've messed up the should and the may and the must in other places as well. The next thing obviously is again on monitoring and logging, so more of the same. This is again, I think on this one I may have gotten it right. I'm looking at section 4.12. It does say that operators may integrate SCONE signaling into an existing OSS NMS framework. So, that's what this one is talking about, monitoring capabilities as well. Okay, so I know I'm probably raising, again, opening up a can of worms, but just wanted to make sure that we call that out, that SCONE, as we see it, is to work independently of any congestion control algorithms that might be running, one or more of these. So it really is independent of those decisions. It's simply a way where it looks like network is able to give guidance on a particular 4 tuple. So network will say that, oh, this looks like a candidate for me to add a SCONE packet to it. Then that's what it is, and it's really operating how the decision is made for when the network decides. So that's all the point there is. And it's so obviously SCONE is not a replacement for transport level congestion control. And that only one, I know there was some question that was raised in the SCONE working group GitHub about that there may be one or more on-path network elements that would update. Typically, I have not seen that. And what I know and what we have seen in our network, that really only one of those would be making such decisions. So only one of those should send. And I don't know if we can put a must there, but I think in general, that's what we see. I'm just going to pause here because TNG is in the queue and so is Marcus.
Okay, here I have a suggestion for the ECFOS here, because that one so far is only enabled. Well, here we're talking about the mobile network part. So this is not a very general description, because the 4G part has not implemented this type of features in the core network. So it's only applied in the 5G core with some specific feature. And also the processing and implementation of the ECN and 4S so far on the 5G network requires some special treatment. So here, if we try to introduce this one, it's like another dimension, and you're using like maybe harmonized by policy. So my suggestion is just remove these things, because there's really no, I cannot see an easy way or very straightforward way to harmonize this policy with SCONE policy part. And for the only one UTF things, should. I don't know. It's like because in some people are talking about PTO session. PTO session can have IUPF things, and it's also like just like a regular UPF. It can do the similar things. I can apply the policy that apply to the anchor UPF and also can be applied to IUPF. So if they do have the similar SCONE policy, or even not the similar, but the different policy, SCONE policy, applied at anchor UPF and also at IUPF, in that case, both type of UPS can do the SCONE advice. So maybe not just the only one here. I don't know the language part, but here it seems to me it gave too much restriction here. Yeah, thank you.
I think it's fine to have recommendations to that if you have multiple chained user plane devices, that it is probably advisable to not send through the device from each and every one of those. I agree that there are different types of UPFs and you have different types of deployments, and all of them could have the capability. But when you're deploying and planning your network, it probably makes sense to think about that, and some guidance around those types of things would probably be good. Because it's really not useful to have chained nodes in your own network sending different throughput advice. I mean, I'm not sure, but whatever. The issue one issue here is that you might only have one UPF that does this, but there might be other network segments outside of your control that also send throughput advice that might be outside the control of the network operator. So the end device might be tethered via some other network, and that network sends throughput advice. So even whatever we say here, that there might still be cases where you have multiple advice coming on path. So it's just something. It might originate from different network domains. So just keep that in mind. I do agree with the text that it should be possible to harmonize ECN and LFRS. There are orthogonal features. There might be, 3GPP level, there might be specifics making those policies difficult, but that's not something for this document to care about. I think in principle it's fine, and I think we should spell that out, that these mechanisms can work together.
So I think we should not say anything about EC and L4S harmonizing at all in this document. That's my personal opinion. Even if I'm authoring this document, but that's my personal opinion, that because I think these are orthogonal, and that would be, even if we say harmonize, and some people might be smart enough to do that, I think there are lots of, that would be not unique or universally applicable. That's harmonizing. So I don't think we say anything, but I also say we might actually need to warn the people, hey, you might get rate adaptation from different domains if you're in in multipath or whatnot. Those can come in, but no, I personally I don't like to bring SCONE and EC and L4S together on any harmonizing thing.
So speaking as the co-author, I just want to quickly chime in, because there has been a lot of discussions on that part, and I almost felt like really putting it under the rug and saying that, well, we already had the discussion, so let's not have the discussion anymore. I could have taken that route, but I also believe that it was important for me to say that the SCONE really is working independently of those transport level congestion control. I think that part is important, and I think that we need to say that as many times as we should, that SCONE is operating independent of that. But at the same time, I just wanted to also recognize that the decision on what value the SCONE throughput advice that is being sent, just wanted to say that the operators are free to choose based what optimum value they provide. It could be that they're using relying on the internal congestion control in order to use that value. So it was sort of more like a statement, but I'm not really attached that it must be in the document. But that was at least just calling out how I thought about it in why it should exist in the document. But certainly.
So sorry, I put myself in queue, Sanjay, to say almost exactly what you just said. I think it is important because we do get, especially from people not in this room, confusion about like, oh, well, why isn't this just ECN, right? That like underlying the difference between these two, or underlining the difference between these two as often as we can is useful. What I'll say is I read like harmonized by policy is exactly like something that Marcus just said, right? Like you can build a system where you're going to have throughput advice that is wildly out of scale for where you've set your routers to do ECN marking, but you probably shouldn't, right? Like, so you probably should have during network planning, and I don't think it's useless to point this out. Hey, you have a couple of different places where you have related configuration parameters. One is like, when are you going to do marking, and when are you going to do dropping on this queue? And one is, what are you going to tell the sender its rate is? If those mostly agree with each other, then this works very well. If those completely disagree with each other, then you're going to have a bad time, right? So I think that's probably useful advice to have. But the most important, just as you said, Sanjay, I think the most important reason to have this in the document is we do need to keep telling people that like, hey, ECN is also here, and L4S is also here, and they solved this problem over here, and this is solving a different problem. Like we're not even sort of like touching it on the continuum. So thanks.
All right. Next slide. And I know this is a touchy subject again, and I've gotten some feedback on the chat as well. SCONE signaling by using the 3GPP nomenclature, but I think what we maybe have not done the good job of it is that any 3GPP terms that we are using, we keep them simple enough. But by and large, we moved all the gory details, which we thought were important, down in the separate section of its own, so that we can obviously clean that up. But in general, from sections 3 and 4, we have kept at a minimum. But things like the usage of word rat type, etc., causes more confusion, so we can simplify that. But I think the underlying point that I want to put this in the document, that any mobile operator reading this, they're not coming out with a sense that, is this document suggesting anything for me to do which is out of 3GPP spec? Because if it is, then it will be hard for them to work with their vendor to implement it, because it's not 3GPP, and it will also cause a lot of consternation within the mobile operator themselves, whether or not this feature fits into their 3GPP specs. So I think to the point that we can specify where we can, but it's important to say that the whole idea is that SCONE signaling aligns with 3GPP spec. At least that's how the intent was. Then in terms of the security, so I think I'm almost reaching like towards the end of the draft. I feel like rather quickly than what you will actually, if you read through the document, it has a little bit more text. From security perspective, there's no concerns yet that we have seen, anything other than what would be addressed in the SCONE protocol. And IANA, this is again not a definitive statement, but at this time, no new assignments are required. All right, moving back on to the next slide. There are some catch-all type of area that we put as open issues and future work. Just put that as placeholder to maybe if someone is thinking about those ideas and have questions. So we've just noted these here: receiver adaptation behavior, extensibility beyond 4G and 5G networks, The periodicity goes back to the frequency of updates. I think it's not quite shaken out yet as to what that should be, what that value should be. So just noting that. And then the last thing is, again, this goes back to the 3GPP in the sense that all we are thinking is that SCONE should comply with 3GPP, and that how a CSP determines its video policy flow should be an independent decision, but SCONE itself is not asking to change any of your video policy for a flow. Okay, next slide. So I, certainly open. So I just wanted to capture some of the feedback we got in the mailing list. So these are captured here. I defer to the chairs if they're okay for us to walk through these, or we just sort of work these out as the document decision is made as to where and how we need to work on these things. But these are the comments from Tina. I think in general she's good with the document, how the document is shaping. Comments are maybe some cleanup is required, and suggestion is to add more details on how the throughput advisor is generated and how application provide hints. Those are the type of comments that have been raised here in this document, in her email. And Tina, you're on the call, so if there's anything that you want to add, now would be a good time.
Yeah, I think you summarized capture here very well. Yeah, that's all I have so far. And I see Tianji has some related discussion, and there's a job to Jiang. Well, it's not directly relevant to my comments. Maybe later we can discuss the possibility to combine those two jobs and to make the SCONE is adopted globally by both the telcos from US and APAC. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, and then the next two pages have comments from Tianji, basically asking that sections 4 and 3 provide general considerations for applicability of SCONE to mobile networks. And then in section 5, we talk about 5G in details. And yes, does not go into the details of 4G, except that we have the high-level architecture diagram. But yes, we did focus more on the 5G use case, given its prevalent use, and also most of the providers are using 5G. But certainly 4G is also important. So I agree with that. And then next slide continues on restructuring more on sections 3 and 4. And as Tina mentioned, that there's a document that you submitted. I have not gone through again, the newest version that you have. Certainly happy to do that. And of course, points that you have raised that are not addressed in this document, and then this would be a good place for those documents to sort of coalesce around those points. And okay, that brings to the next steps. So maybe that's something that Tianji, you have.
Yeah, the things like regarding the comments. I agree with what. Yes, Tina has given a very good summary about the contents of the draft. And then I just try to comment from the structure of the one and some work that try to revolve around the subject line and also the theme of this draft, applicability and the manageability part. So as I mentioned in the comments, the structure is fine here, section 3 and 4. It's all about the general applicability and the manageability of the SCONE part. So the only thing is like try to make it a more abstract sort of, and then to move some specific technologies like I have discussed the rack, those type of things out of the maybe just remove those type of things. Or we can directly use the radio technology, those type of things, so that people in IETF can understand what we're talking about. And regarding the section 5 here, because section 3 and 4 have given the general applicability part. So my suggestion actually is like to applicability of SCONE to things in the mobile network. So here we're talking about 5G and 4G, the thing here. So that's why I give suggestion. Maybe we can get 2 different sections. One to apply the general applicability from section 3 and 4 to 5G, section 5, and extend another section for 4G by applying the general applicability and manageability part. And also, I give the suggestion to merge, because in our draft, myself and Tina, we give the details. Actually, we focus on how this thing can be, how SCONE can be applied and realized in a 5G scenario, and then not from the like architecture or those type of the 5G details, but focus on the how can be applied and realized in the 5G about the SCONE. And then, yeah, I think that is the, so recommendation.
Thanks, Tianji.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I'm going to tee this back to the chairs. And anyone else that may have questions?
So thank you very much for leading this discussion. I think we've had some good discussion here. We've got 20 people in the room. I don't think we can make a call for, I mean, like, obviously call for adoption is going to be 2 weeks out on the list. I think the question that I'd like to ask to the list is, do we want to go ahead and adopt this draft? That would also allow us to fork your GitHub, your personal GitHub into the IETF WG SCONE GitHub, and then we can start doing sort of like the issue tracking and all of that on the working group GitHub. I think that would be super useful. And then to have the bits of the other draft and the structure suggestions from Tina and Tianji brought in as PRs on that draft. Like that would be sort of like the basis of what I'm thinking of here. I do think that this is probably ready for adoption. I think it probably needs some operation within the working group. But like I've seen for the size of this meeting, I've seen a lot of good discussion here on this. So one thing I would yeah, no, actually, I don't feel like we need to ask that question. Is there anyone who's here who would object to let's take this draft as it is, put a 2-week call for adoption out, go ahead and get the, do the logistics for getting this into the working group GitHub, and then take all of that discussion and the changes that we want to make here as PRs and issues on that GitHub? Is there anyone here who thinks that's a bad idea and has an alternate suggestion?
Things like this is Tianji. I don't object, but the things like I think this one, as I mentioned in the email, in the comments part here, this one has to give a good starting point for the general applicability and manageability. But the things here, we're trying to discuss some in the control domain, and here talking about the mobile network, 5G, 4G things. So it would be better if we can to put more contents on that area, like our suggestion for the section 5 and maybe section 6, to see how are you going to apply this one, the general idea, general applicability and the manageability to the mobile network, like a 5G case, and maybe for the 4G case. So I don't object, but my suggestion is to maybe add more contents.
Yeah, is that the idea would be we would add that content as part of the working group process after adoption, right? Like, so I speaking personally, I really like the idea of having a structure where you have on the front end, hey, these are generalized considerations for implementing this, and we're going to do it sort of in an architecture. You can't really have it in an architecture agnostic way, right? Like, so you have to, SCONE assumes that there's a thing on the network that can actually touch the packets and do something to it, right? And it assumes there's some source of policy, right? There's sort of a minimum reference architecture that you need to have for SCONE. You can talk about those, and I think, like you say, 3 and 4 do that pretty well, and then like have additional sections for applying these to specific network technologies, right? Like, so that seems like a pretty good idea to me, right? But looking at the document, it looks like we can get there without a whole lot of editing to it, right? Like, so I think that what we have here does look like a basis for PRs against that, right? Like, so there's, you can add another markdown header in a structure. You can change a structure with another header in markdown, right? So it's not that big a lift. Does that sound accurate to you, Tianji?
Yeah, just the chair's call here. The things like suggestion is well, I agree. This is a good starting point for the structure of.
And I would like to get it. I would like to get something for this deliverable, adopted in the working group, so that we can, like, as I was taking notes here, and one of the things that I realized, it's harder to take notes for this document than it is to take notes for the protocol document, because in the protocol document there's a bunch of discussion, and at the end of it's like, oh, we're just going to put an issue on the thing, and then the discussion continues on the issue, whereas like we don't have that here. So just speaking as the note taker, I'd love to get something adopted soon.
Yeah.
All right.
So good.
Okay, cool. Any other discussion on that? Marcus.
Yeah, I fully agree. Just make sure that in any adoption call, you do spell that out very clearly, that there are like a ton of open issues here, and like, because people who have not been in this meeting and see it might like, so just make that very, very clear in the adoption call. I think that would be great.
Yep.
So you just mentioned a ton of issues. Not that I have problems with it, but I didn't see a lot of issues. I think I do hear some language cleanup on the 3GPP part, and then add a little bit more details into sections 3 and 4, and perhaps delve into 4G just as much as we've done on the 5G. So
yeah, it was maybe a little bit too much terminology. It's a ton of issues, but there are open discussions on the structure of the document and so on.
I think the way I'd phrase that is like, there's there are some working groups that like adopt a document, and then it's like, oh, this is what we're going to ship. We don't adopt until we're pretty close to that. I'll make it clear that we don't expect to publish this like tomorrow. We do think that there's work that needs to be done within the working group. I think how I'd like to do this is run the call for adoption. That'll finish off beginning of October-ish. Let's see, Wednesday to Wednesday, probably get out Thursday, Alex, October 2nd. And then we'll have some time. We'll try and drive a few weeks of discussion on GitHub. Right, like I want to go ahead and actually I might go ahead and presuppose the outcome of that call for adoption and go ahead and fork this draft into their working group GitHub. Like we did this as well with the SCONE merge draft. So I think we have precedent for that. Go ahead and get things in the GitHub so we can have the discussions in the GitHub issues. And we have like the working group GitHub robot is taking those issues and pushing them out to the mailing list, right? Like with the idea that we have a IETF 0.0 version of this draft before the Montreal deadline, so that we can spend some time in person talking about that in Montreal. It'd be great if we actually get some of these issues with respect to structure, at least kind of like, with some to-dos on them for the 0.0. It'll be IETF 0.0. It's okay to have to-dos in the doc. Sanjay, does that seem reasonable to you?
I think so. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay, cool. Zahed.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, the timeline looks good, and then when people are commenting on the document, whether it's adapted or not, they can also like review the document and say like what are the issues, so we can we can create tons of issues.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So
if people find it.
The question that I caught myself before I asked was like, how many people have read this document? And I realized, like, it's Wednesday and it came out on Monday, and people have stuff to do. So that would not have been a super useful, like, hey, 2 people read the document. How do I interpret that? Wow, 2 people read the document. That's actually pretty good given the timelines. So like I also want to have this call for adoption out. So again, also those people not in the room who are following this work, have another impetus to read it, and to put those issues on the working group GitHub. So I think the first thing we'll do is like get, Sanjay will follow up with you to get the repository set up and moved in, and then the call for adoption will also then point people to the working group repository for issues.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns, like quasi open mic on applicability and manageability? Going, gone. Thank you very much, Sanjay, for leading the discussion. Thank you to the working group for the discussion. Marcus, do you want to take any time to talk about open issues on protocol?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. I guess I'll need to do some screen sharing.
Oh yeah, we need to do the, hold on, which means I need to revoke slide control from Sanjay. Yes. Oh, I stole it. Okay, good. And you get a screen share.
Do you want to share a screen? Yes. And can I choose what to share? Oh yeah, I can. And it needs to be the right tab as well. Oh, there, pull request. Okay, there we go. So there are 3 open pull requests right now, and there are a few issues. Some are related. I think we should probably potentially start with 61, because it is kind of a pull request that collapsed a number of previous pull requests that were discussed last meeting, and I think we're in pretty good shape on this one. It would be great if Martin was here, but I guess it's very inconvenient time for him. But basically, it's a big PR, but it combines a bunch of changes that were discussed in a number of other PRs. So now it's collapsed into a single one, and I think it's pretty clear. So, and I think it's quite nicely summarized as well. So what's happening now is we're defining a monitoring period. This is the period over which you, if you send a throughput advice and you want to monitor conformance, you should be monitoring over this time period. So that means that, or if you're a network element, you should monitor for at least this time period. You could monitor for longer periods if you wish to, and it also means that endpoints need to take this monitoring period into consideration if it wants to ensure that it conforms. Endpoints can use shorter monitoring intervals or monitoring periods if it so wish, but this is where the monitoring of an endpoint and a network element meets. So 67 seconds. The choice of 67 seconds, there have been discussions there. I'm just trying to summarize. We don't have to go look at all the all the discussions and so on. But the choice of 67 seconds is that it's a prime number. It's not a number that kind of converges with other timeouts and timers and such that can be part of various systems that are interacting here. So I think that is. Oh yeah, and Alan pasted that text into the chat. Excellent. So you can read it if you're interested. And then there was in one of the previous PRs, there was an algorithm describing on how you monitor adherence, and then it was a little bit more how to say, normative almost. Now it's really clearly defined that this is an example how you can do this. It's a pretty good example. You like do this with a sliding window and some considerations for how you do that. It also addresses some discussions that have been previously regarding both frequency of changes and some concerns from certain operators or vendors about the cost of having to frequently update a large number of SCONE packets, et cetera, and also the risk of what happens if you miss updating a SCONE packet and so on, and will you have flopping rates and so on. So basically now it's kind of explicitly allows for missing to update SCONE packets, because now that we have the monitoring period, you only need to send updates a few times per monitoring period, and there's a recommendation that you do it at least twice, but you don't need to do it much more than that. And there's also very important here, since step number 4 is that you now recommend endpoints to follow the lowest throughput advice they received in the last monitoring period, which then addresses the issue with what happens if you kind of accidentally miss to update some throughput advice, SCONE packet. Also, now that we have this monitoring period, so we're in step 5 here, and that's fine. But we also have the concept of dynamic updates. So there might be changes to throughput advice. Throughput advice might get reduced. And if you're in the middle of a monitoring period, and you're always in the middle of a monitoring period, I guess, in some sense, if you have some state of measuring throughput over the last monitoring period, and then you change your throughput to something lower, you pretty much need to discard that state. Otherwise, you might just end up being non-conformant from the start. So we're allowing endpoints to discard that state, and also that means that somebody who does monitoring in the network needs to, when you actually change your throughput advice to something lower, you need to discard that state. Otherwise, you might then just end up tagging a flow as being non-conformant right away, and that's not good. So there's good description on those considerations in there. Also, there are some recommendations in there on like how often you should include SCONE packets. So like there's kind of a minimum of sending it like 2 times per monitoring period, but it could make sense to send it a bit more frequently, both to allow for faster detection of changes. I guess it also is appropriate for like reducing the risk of if there's loss and such. So there's some advice on sending it a little bit more frequently than two times per monitoring period. And then there have been a number of discussions here. There have been some updates to the text and so on, small things. I think most outstanding issues are solved. There are some issues that have been punted to an issue. I think there was a comment from Kazuho about when you lower throughput advice, you go from one advice or one rate limit to a lower limit. How much slack or how much like grace period do we give to endpoints to be able to react to that? The current text in this PR is pretty vague. And there could be suggestions to kind of tie this grace period to the monitoring period and so on. It was decided to move that discussion to an issue. So I don't think that discussion will block merging of this PR, and then potentially resolving that issue could land in a new PR. But I would like to see if Kazuho has any other thoughts on this. If not, we can also go to that. Okay, merge and discuss the remainder separately. Good. And I saw that there were some new comments coming in today as well from Alan. Do you want to bring those discussions up here, or?
Sure, I can. Although I have not been in direct contact with like I think we had a vendor that expressed an interest when we were just talking to them about sort of a set it and forget it kind of operation of SCONE, where once they have decided what the rate is, they don't want to mess with any packets unless something changes, which is currently incompatible with the way this PR is written, because it says after the monitoring period expires, then it goes to unknown. That being said, I sort of think it's incumbent on, we probably shouldn't be trying to represent the operator or that vendor's view, because I don't know exactly what their concerns are. It would be more compelling if they were here. I'm not sure if anybody is that can represent that point of view. I guess I just wanted to raise it. I'm okay with landing this and resolving that issue somewhat separately, because this PR addresses a lot of open issues, and the working group seems mostly okay with it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I would also kind of suggest that we move this to an issue and discuss that, because it would be very good to understand those motivations a bit more, and especially I think we're landing on a good compromise here with the monitoring period and so on. And it would be, if we want to change this to some other type of model, I think we need to discuss that and have good motivation. I think Jed is on the.
On Alan's point, I think I'm not sure like you at the vendor, but I can say like we kind of when I was looking into that one, I was also thinking like the same, like you go into the unknown limit if you don't put anything in after the monitoring. So that's not what for us we want to do. We want to do just signal it and only update when things are changed, so that we don't need to do it every like 60, 67, 7 seconds, 68 seconds. We need to update the rate signal. We don't want to do that. So I think any kind of like update on the document, if we agree on like whether we should be keeping the previous updated red signal as it was signaled previously, not going to unknown, I think that would be great. But obviously that couldn't be done in another peer or like another issue, resolve another issue. So
yeah, I think it's a super interesting discussion. I have a view that I think it's the right compromise is to have to update at least once per or 2 times per once per monitoring period. But I'm happy to take that discussion in an issue.
Sure.
Yeah, Marcus, Anup from Meta. So there is a clarification question. So you mentioned that it is linked with the monitoring period, right? So the network element is supposed to update the SCONE packet at least once within monitoring period, or a recommendation is twice.
Yeah.
And then as per this PR, monitoring period can be increased. It's 57 seconds is at least minimum value, right? So if CSP wants, they can extend it to higher value, and that will make the network element to update it with lesser frequency. Is it correct?
I think actually here I think there are 2 concepts here that use the same timer. So I think the recommendation to endpoints is that you should follow the lowest throughput advice you've seen in the last 67-second period. Now you're right that a CSP might decide to have a longer monitoring period than 67 seconds, but I think the frequency of updating SCONE packets does not get impacted of that. You need to still, according to how this is written, you still need to send you still need to do like an update of a SCONE packet like once per 20 to 30 seconds, even if you decide to do your averaging over a longer period than that as a CSP. And I think that's how it's specified now. And I personally still think that this is the right compromise, because I actually see a good comment from John here. Like there can be shifts in paths and so on, and there are many. I think you add complexity on the endpoint if you allow for this set and forget kind of thing. Then you need to have more logic in the endpoints to determine whether, you know, the reason for not seeing updated SCONE packets, is that due to some path change, or is it due to a network element that set something and then, you know, doesn't need to set anything more? I think that's that's a little bit. And this is why I think this is the right compromise to require that we set it like once per this window. But yeah.
So trying to understand, so this is not linked with the monitoring period, right? So it is linked with the 67 second. It says, as per the PR, that a network element is required to update the SCONE packet at least every 67 seconds, or recommendation is at least twice within the 67 seconds, and monitoring period can be larger than 67 seconds. So basically, it is not linked with the monitoring period. It is a fixed value.
I didn't pick up the last things here, but yes, the requirement right now is that if you want to keep the throughput advice alive, so to speak, you need to update it once or twice per monitoring period. Yes. That's
the question. So it is, when you say monitoring period, because monitoring period can be larger than 67 seconds.
Okay, the monitoring period as specified, the 67 seconds. Yes.
Okay.
Not your internal averaging window that you might, you know, choose to be something different, but the value 67 that is put into the specification. That's the value we're talking about here. And the reason for this is that we need to have something that we can agree upon. Now there is a recommendation in the text for towards endpoints that you should remember the lowest value you have seen in the previous 67 seconds. That you follow the lowest throughput device you see in the last 67 seconds. So this is why we need to use this 67 seconds as kind of the interval for which we determine how frequently to send things as well. You might have other monitoring periods internally in your network element, and that's fine, but you still need to send updates with this frequency. I think that's the point here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I really think we need someone to represent the viewpoint of like, what is the specific concern about sending it once every 67? Is it that it's expensive to find out what to put in there, or is it's expensive to put anything in there at all? Because we could always mint a code point, which is like no change. If what was expensive was determining what the right value was.
Yeah.
It seems like it shouldn't be that hard to maybe remember what the last value was for a particular flow and just keep stamping it there until it changes. But I am not a network vendor. I do not have any idea. So it would be great if someone could say like, no, this is expensive in our architecture. Like it will block our ability to effectively build this feature or deploy it unless we make this change. Or is it related to having timers? Is it related to like figuring out what rate to put in there? And then that will inform, people can agree or disagree whether that's a problem, and then we can figure out like what's the right way to address it. So I would maybe just put out, and if there's not anybody in this room who can articulate, someone should file an issue, specifically say, if there isn't one already, and make it very crisp, like this is this does not work for me because of this reason, and then the working group can focus on that.
Agreed.
Alan, point taken. I think if I'll think about it more than if I'm seriously concerned, like, okay, having an unknown value or like having 67, every 87, my network will need to do something for part, like all the flows that I'm going through, the thousands of flows. If it is an expensive one, I'll come back with that one, because it raised in my head. I didn't find any issue, so I was still thinking like what I should do. But the reason I raised my hand here, because there was a comment like, okay, the network path can change and there is concern. I mean, if the network path changed, I expect the client to reset everything what it got as a red signal on the previous path, because in the new path, it should say like, I have no information, unless the new path gives an signal back to the client, because it's a new path. I don't know, like if this path even supports SCONE or not. So I don't know. So I'm not sure. Like I understand the concern on like path change and how unknown value actually helps. I don't know.
For me, the issue with path change is that if we were to move to a model of like set and forget, then the endpoint needs to figure out whether the lack of receiving SCONE packets with a value depend on that I'm still on this path and there's no change in policy on this path, or there is some path change in the network that I'm not aware of. So you would.
But if you have a path change in the network, I mean, what happens then? I mean, you are aware of like the path has changed, and then in that sense, if you're aware of like your path has changed, you should just expect like, okay, I have no information about the path.
But if you're an application, you might not have that awareness if you're an endpoint.
But that's what I'm trying to understand. Like if that's the concern, like the application doesn't have, but then putting an unknown value, does it help? Like because the path change, I'll not get the SCONE unknown value packet on that, unless I have a logic in my client saying like, if I don't get an update every 67 seconds, that I actually consider the unknown value.
Yeah,
but I don't think the PR says that, right?
And that's what the PR says. Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I think is the best compromise. Like, but anyway, we can discuss this.
Let's discuss it over perhaps an issue. I think that's a better idea. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. Do we want to discuss that over an issue after this merges? It sounded like we were getting to.
Yeah, I think that's the plan.
merge and correct.
Yes.
Did I hear that correctly, Marcus, as well?
Yeah, that's how I would like to do it. But yeah,
go ahead and click the button.
Yeah.
Click the button. Live streaming a PR merge. All right.
We can do it. No worries.
Go to the bottom. Click the button.
Squash and merge. Yeah. Okay. We put the whole thing in there.
Do you want to just maybe put a comment in the PR that says we plan to this issue that was raised will be addressed in a separate issue or something?
That's
Okay, so Marcus, can you do that like offline? I mean,
yeah, I'll do it. I'll stop sharing that.
Okay. Cool. All right. We have 2 minutes left. So next we have an interop planning interim on the did I not get it in my calendar? It's the second or third week of October. We have not yet decided who gets to eat the time zone pain for that one. I will take that message to the list. There's also a SCONE interop channel on the QuickDev Slack. Wes, I think if he hasn't already, I haven't been looking at the mailing list. If he hasn't already, we'll send out some information about that. People who are going to be doing interop stuff should probably join that one, and we can even see if we can get some live running interops and endpoints up for that over on that chat. And then we will do the adoption call as soon as we have a IETF WG SCONE GitHub for the applicability and manageability draft. With that, in the remaining 20 seconds, any other business? Going. Gone. All right. Thank you all very much for a very productive interim. And we'll see you in a few weeks or in Montreal. Have a great one. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.